Hey guys, welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Andrew Seegers, and this time we're joined by Josh Thomas of the BitBlock and Nintendo to talk even more about Super Nintendo World. So let's get started. Alright guys, so again, we've talked about Super Nintendo World a fair amount already, but since our initial impressions discussion, both you and I, Josh, have done our own analysis, and we've been thinking a lot about this land. Like, I mean a lot. So I wanted to dive in even deeper, including with Nintendo here, because we haven't had his thoughts at all yet on this, about Nintendo World, and just talk about even more about exactly what they could be doing here and how this may be laid out, and what we're really looking at here in this concept art. So before we get started, or before we dive into the really nitty-gritty, Don, do you want to give us your overall thoughts real quick, since we haven't had them yet?
I was really excited when they first announced it. I didn't really know what to expect, but when the concept art came in, and I know how the whole charade of concept art in amusement parks work, when it's something that comes up, it's usually pretty accurate or what we're gonna see. And the whole environment stuff, like the Mario elements, like the Peach's Castle in the front there, and Bowser's Castle in the back, it all looks so gosh darn beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Looks so perfect. While I'm a bit worried that we haven't seen much of other stuff yet, it's a really good proof of concept, like really strong.
It really is.
Yeah, and I think it's the thing that might me want to go back for another round of Universal Studios. Because, fun fact, the first 2 years I went to E3, I went to Universal Studios.
Well, I remember talking, when I first met you, it was at a Nintendo panel, and you were telling me about how you're going to Universal Studios the next day, and I'm like, oh, I'm going too. So, we have that in common, Don, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is coming to first to Universal Studios Japan, which I actually mentioned at some point that I want to go to Japan by the 2020 Olympic Games, so that's perfect.
It is perfect. I mean, yeah, needless to say, we are all super excited. I mean, as we said before, Josh and I alone could talk about this for hours, and who knows, we might. We didn't put any time limit on this discussion, so this could go on for a while. So, yeah, let's go and touch on one thing real quick, and that is the fact that, as you kind of touched on, Don, this looks to be extremely Mario focused. Now, obviously, that's something we all noticed originally, but even more so since, because in my own analysis, because we had talked before about how the area to the southeast could be like Donkey Kong themed, and it might still be. But when I looked at it in the analysis, I realized this looks to be based more on Mario, because you can see a Contour enemy just barely behind Luigi in the concept art. The pyramid looks like it might be almost right out of that same world that the Contours appear in Super Mario 3D World. You can see like a Mario-style cactus in the background. So I'm really starting to get the sense that this really may just be a Mario land, so to speak, or at least as it's presented here. And I know, Josh, you kind of talked about this a little bit in your discussion as well, right? With it perhaps being more Japan-related, right?
So yeah, I mean, we talked about this before, about how when we were first hearing about this, Japanese newspapers and everybody in Japan were talking about it being a Super Mario Land in Japan, actually. They weren't really even referring to it as a Nintendo theme park. They were referring to it as a Super Mario theme park. And based on the map that we have for Nintendo Japan, and based on this concept art, this seems about the size of the space that they currently have, so I'd be very surprised if there is more to the Japanese version of this land than what we see in this concept art.
I would be too. Like that, looking at the space allotted for it, it isn't huge. I think it is comparable to the Harry Potter space if you take away the lake. Because Harry Potter has a whole lake over there, and it actually makes the land look huge. If you get rid of that, because there's no lake in Mario Land, obviously, I think they're pretty comparable. The thing is, Harry Potter only has 2 rides, being Forbidden Journey as well as that roller coaster, which isn't even that big itself. So I'm really thinking that we may this land, at least as we're seeing it here, may not be huge, and that this artwork specifically is showing us how it's going to fit into Japan, especially since it mentions Universal Studios Japan on the artwork.
Yeah, that's something I don't know if I feel like I told you this, but I find it incredibly suspicious that there is the Universal Studios Japan logo attached to this, because they do have a Universal Resort or Universal Parks logo. They have like a Universal, I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's a Parks logo.
Right.
And that's what they use when it's like a plan that they plan on using exactly for multiple areas.
You could say it's a Universal logo.
Andre! It literally is the Universal logo.
Yeah, right.
I think that in America, the two parks will have this same mountain, the same idea for the little Toad House and the castle and the gate for Bowser and all that. But I do think maybe different placement slightly, and then also I do think there will be other things connected to this in some way.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Like, I think this represents specifically Japan. I think the final product would look very similar to what we're seeing here, but I think there could be some slight changes for the other parks, placement and not so much rise, but I do think in placement. So yeah, I think this may be a sign more of how it'll fit into Japan, whereas we'll get some maybe different placement around at the other parks, or or if not different placement, more to this land. Again, we don't know. There could still be more to this in Japan even, but based on what we're seeing, it does seem to be very Mario focused. Now, there is one thing I wanted to touch on here specifically, because one of the questions I had early on that we talked about before is it involved the multi-leveled aspect of this land, which is really unique. I like that. Like, I like the fact that this is multi-layered, which is something you don't often see in theme parks. They're usually, either, at ground level or very gradient, very gradual elevation changes throughout the land. We never see, like, a stark contrast like this, or very rarely. So my question at the time was, which section is ground level? And I wonder, Josh, has your thoughts changed at all, or do you still think Bowser's Castle and Peach's Castle might represent ground level?
I still feel those are the ground level, yeah.
I totally disagree now in thinking about this.
Oh my god, how dare you.
100% disagree now, because, or maybe not 100%, like, it still could go either way, but in thinking about this more, I think almost for sure the lower section has to be ground level, because we've never seen anything quite like this in a theme park. The closest things I can compare it to are at the Canadian Pavilion in Epcot in Disney World, where they have a staircase that goes up to another level, but it's going up from ground level to another level above. Same thing in Disney Sea. When you're going to the volcano, there's a staircase you climb up to the volcano area. So again, what I'm getting at is the only comparable situations we've had involves going up. I don't think they're going to dig this massive hole to fit in Nintendo Land. I think what we're actually seeing I think the main area is ground level, and they're building. The buildings are just that. They're buildings themed to Mario Ground, of course, but they're actually elevated. They're actually above ground, and I think that actually may help maybe hide the outside area as well, or whatever they don't want you to see. But I am starting to think now. The area down below is ground level. You go up to Bowser's Castle and Peach's Castle, which would indicate to me, if I'm right, that the true entrance into the land is actually behind that bridge. I think, and this is actually kind of making sense to me, the fact that you approach Peach's Castle as opposed to entering it from, as opposed to entering from Bowser's Castle or the holes in the wall left of Bowser's Castle.
Well, wait, so then you think the big entrance to this land is going to be a tropical Egyptian theme?
I don't know if that's the true entrance. I mean, there may be more here that we're not seeing. In fact, I would bet that there is. There's probably more beyond that bridge that we're not seeing. I mean, okay, well, consider this. We already know that one of the first things they're going to be seeing beyond that bridge is still that giant mountain there. So I think the desert and mountain kind of complement each other in that way. And who knows what else there might be potentially beyond that. So yeah, I mean, I think the desert theme potentially would be there with the mountain theme as one of the first things you see.
Like you said, I do think it could go either way. I think it's easier to dig down than it is to build land up, so that's why I would say it seems like they dug this underground.
But they're not, I guess that's the main thing though, like, are they really building up here? Like, it's no different than building a building with a second floor.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it really also depends on what the heck's on the other side of Bowser's Castle Gate and what's the Peach Castle.
Right. So what I'm now thinking is if we assume I'm right and the British area is the entrance, I mean that will be the part that lines up with the Universal Studios Japan itself, like with the main street, I would think, right? So that means I think Bowser's Castle or Peach's Castle are going to be along the perimeter of the park, and they will help disguise the outside world, like that hotel you were talking about, Josh, before we started recording, that like towers over everything else.
There is a large hotel that would be looking right over this land. Well, but then you can walk through Bowser's Castle Gate. So if it's on the perimeter, what do you?
That's what I'm wondering now. Is what the heck is that? Because I've heard some rumblings
Rumblings.
Some rumblings. Not. Well, by that I mean I've read some forum posts, and apparently some people are saying that they've heard that's the Mario Kart ride entrance.
What?
But yeah, I don't buy that for two reasons. Or it could be the case. Who knows? It does look like Bowser's Castle from the Mario Kart game. So in that sense, it makes sense. I don't think it makes sense for two reasons, though. One, if you look at Bowser's Castle, the back of it, or the wall of it rather, the front of it I suppose, matches up with what looks to be the back area of the mountain. So I wonder that kind of like represents a perimeter, if you will, or some kind of perimeter for Mario Land, like the extent of how far this land goes. But beyond that even, the more I've been looking at Bowser's Castle, the less to me it looks like a real focal point. Especially if we take the bridge as being the entrance, you're not gonna see Bowser's Castle at all. It's like way off in the corner. It's pretty flat looking. Like there's not a lot of depth to it.
Yeah.
And it's hidden by that mountain.
Yeah, it's definitely a gate from this concept art. It doesn't look like a full 3D castle to me.
It's either a gate or some kind of like lesser attraction, like a meet and greet or store or something like that, or even a show maybe. But I don't think it's a ride.
If you compare it to the rest of the art, really, it seems to be more a gate than anything, yeah.
Okay, so let's assume there is going to be a Mario Kart attraction, and there's a lot of reason to believe that.
Right.
Out of all the things we have in this concept art, what would you think makes the best entrance to that attraction? What screams Mario Kart the most? I personally would say the castle. The castle is, and I think a Mario Kart attraction would be like the main attraction of this land. And so I'd say Peach's Castle would be the entrance. Definitely not Bowser's Castle.
I would agree with that. I don't feel that whatever is inside the gigantic mountain would be representative of Mario Kart.
Yeah, I don't think the mountain, I'm pretty sure the mountain definitely isn't Mario Kart related. So it is between Peach's Castle and Bowser's Castle. And the interesting thing is both of them have similarities to Mario Kart. Bowser's Castle specifically does seem to be based on Mario Kart, with the fact there's an entrance and you often drive through his mouth in the games.
Double Dash.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. And it even has the little, or the podiums on the side with the flags on them that also look like at the base they're his Bowser claws, or his claws. And then at the top you see the same horned tower as well from Mario Kart 8. At the same time, Peach's Castle, which by its design is more generic in general, like it typically represents the same basic idea. This Peach's Castle also seems to be specifically based on the one from Mario Kart 8, especially with the flags having the little star symbol on them. So,
yeah.
But putting all that aside, I mean, so in that sense, I can see both of them functioning as Mario Kart entrances. But otherwise, I agree with both of you. I think Peach's Castle is the one that really screams. It really seems to be more of a focal point. It's Mario. It's a Mario Castle. I mean, so is Bowser's Castle, I guess. But, like, I mean, that's the one you think of when you think Mario. Like, that's Mario Kart right there. Like, and again, that's the main focal point of this land besides the mountain. Like, Bowser's Castle looks to me so hidden back there. You're not going to see that. Assuming I'm right about the entrances.
So I also have a theory. I think you've disagreed with me on this, Andre.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you look to the left of Bowser's Castle, those weird kind of that little stone-like building that has an entrance, to me, those are restrooms. Those are the restrooms of the land. And restrooms generally are placed at the entrance or exit of an area. And so to me, that's kind of serving as evidence that Bowser's Castle Gate leads into the rest of the park or into another section of the Super Nintendo World area. But I don't think that leads to an attraction. I think that genuinely just leads into another land or spills into the rest of the park. Because where else would restrooms? They always put restrooms in an area. And maybe we just don't see them, but just from the look of it, that definitely looks like a building for restrooms.
I mean, yeah, it's a good point. Another thing some people brought up the fact is that it could be an exit to a ride. So let's just assume Bowser's Castle is Mario Kart. So that might be...
Oh, the ride spills out into there.
Right, exactly. That'd be the ride exit. And same thing for Peach's Castle, assuming... Well, if you assume that's Mario Kart or maybe a different kind of ride. Do you see the little... There looks like there's a hole, like just left of Peach's Castle on the wall too. That could be the right exit for that as well, potentially. So they both might be exits. Maybe one's an exit, the other's a restroom. I'm not sure.
Is that a hole, though?
It's hard to tell. It looks to me like a hole. Like it has a frame.
But it's
and then,
gray.
I don't really see a hole, honestly. I'm looking at it very closely, but
I think it's just a gray block.
I definitely see people standing there, but I don't see a hole.
Look left at that, Don.
It looks to me like a point where you could take pictures or something.
Maybe. I mean, you can't tell for sure. It looks similar to me as the other hole by Bowser's Castle.
Because my thing, if you're standing there, how are you gonna get down?
That connects to the courtyard right in front of Peach's Castle. Like, there's a little walkway there. You can see. Also, there's the thorny area too, like with the piranha creeper thing. I think it all connects. It's all like one area. So I'm pretty sure. I mean, you can definitely walk between Bowser's Castle and Peach's Castle.
I think that area that they're standing on is actually a gift shop that you're technically walking on top of. Because if you look at the little Toad house,
Right.
I think that leads into a gift shop, because how would you not use the Toad house as the gift shop area for Mario? And so obviously that little Toad house, that's just like the design on the outside. It's not actually that small. And I think when you walk in, they've built a gift shop underneath all of those things that people are walking on top of.
And that kind of ties back into my elevation idea. Like you're walking on the roof, basically. That's a building. You're walking on the roof, and the Toad entrance just acts as a funnel into that building. But they've done a great job disguising it. And again, I could be wrong, but I'm really starting to thinking about this more. It makes more sense for that whole thing to be a building and for the rest to be ground level.
You could be right. Yeah, I mean,
Makes sense.
I think either way, honestly, would work. The only thing is then it just, like, again, it depends on what's on the other side of Bowser's Gate and what's on the other side of Peach's Castle.
That is the really baffling thing here, because I really just can't see Bowser's Castle being Mario Kart, like being the Mario Kart ride, assuming that ends up being a thing, right? It's just
If that is like the entrance to the Mario Kart ride, I'd think that was totally mislabeled. Like, that doesn't scream Mario Kart to me. Even though I get there's a Bowser's. When you think of Mario Kart, not many people default to thinking about Bowser's Castle.
Yeah,
course.
I agree with that.
You default to like the Mario or Luigi course, the Mario or Luigi circuit,
Or
which
Rainbow
is generally
Road.
right. Yeah, but I think that's got to be represented by Peach's Castle.
For sure.
And it kind of related to that. Do you want Bowser being the face of your Mario ride? I mean, they could retheme it. They could make it like Mario Kart goes off rails and it's Bowser Kart. Who knows?
Like Bowser has taken over
Right.
Mario Kart, but even that's sort of like, and I don't think that's a direction I would go with.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking too. So I mean, that gets back to the question then of what the heck is it? What is Bowser's Castle? Because it looks like you can go inside it, but let's assume I'm right about the fact that that's all one building. That would suggest that it doesn't really lead anywhere but inside to something. It's not like it wouldn't be a gate. It actually would be some kind of entrance into something, but what?
What if it's an entrance to a restaurant?
Yeah, that could be.
I mean, that wouldn't be a huge amount of space needed, and
Right.
it could just be a little extra thing to make use of all the space they have, and a Bowser-themed restaurant could be pretty interesting.
That would be.
That would be out of all the Mario stuff, I'd say a Bowser restaurant would probably be the most entertaining.
That's a good point.
Eating in Bowser's dungeon.
yeah, your restaurant is just basically you're in his dungeon.
That wouldn't be a terrible idea, because have you heard of the Ninja restaurant in Tokyo and New York? Where you actually, it's super cool. Like there's like a hidden entrance they reveal to you, and you have to, in Japan it's really awesome compared to New York especially. You have to crouch down, you walk through these caverns, and you go past like a hidden waterfall. Eventually they lead you to like this prison almost, or like this jail cell, and you eat there. And it sounds like it's like, it is dark, it's kind of creepy and foreboding, but it's awesome, and that would tie in perfectly with Bowser. Like, it's, like eating out of a jail cell isn't the first thing you think of when you go to a theme park, but it would be unique. It would be something different, right? Or, something of that nature, like a castle or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I were to decide where a restaurant for the Super Mario section would go, I'd say Bowser's Castle has the potential for the most humor and the most clever, like, menus on items on the menu.
I guess even kind of related to that, the new Beauty and the Beast restaurant in Disney World even has like that. There's 3 rooms, all themed to different parts of the movie, and one of them is a West Wing, which is really dark in the movie. Like, it's got lightning flashes. You see the portrait of the prince like turning into the beast when it flashes. It's just like really creepy looking too. So yeah, it all kind of. I could see that working. I could see Nintendo making that work. Like, it'd be a lighthearted but dark restaurant themed experience.
I've got a menu item already.
Oh man,
ready for this?
Go for it.
Paratroopa hot wings.
Ooh.
I want that. I want those in my mouth right now.
If that's a restaurant, does that go kind of against those 2 small buildings being restaurants?
Maybe. Yeah. Well, no, you just ate. You need to go to the restroom afterwards.
But yeah, I think they would probably be inside though, right? If it was a restaurant.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, you got a point.
Yeah, another idea I had is maybe that entrance is just a tunnel entrance that connects to the Peach's castle, like an alternate route, maybe, like a little hidden underground route.
That's the thing here. There are literally
Endless
thousands of possibilities of what any of this could really mean.
There are. It's so true. I mean, that's a crazy thing. But I guess to bring up a broader point about Bowser's Castle, I do want to say I still love how this land looks. But the more I've looked at Bowser's Castle, the more I've been disappointed by it. Because it looks... I mean, in this concept art, like, it looks flat. It doesn't have much dimension behind it. And granted, that may be less of an issue when you're not looking at it, like, from an overhead, far-out perspective like we are. But, you know, like, there's no, like, distant towers or anything. Like, it looks like it has no depth to it. And also, what is going on with that weird, you know, brick building with that, you know, with the entrance we've been talking about? What's going on there? Like, it just cuts off half of Bowser's Castle. The whole thing looks weird to me. Like, it's like that's never been there in a Bowser in a Mario game before, or Mario Kart, where you had this weird structure cutting off half the castle that you can't see from ground level, right?
Maybe that, you know what? Maybe that's another entrance into this section or something, or an exit. I have no idea. My guess would be restrooms, but like Don said, it'd be weird to have restrooms outside of a restaurant. It's hard to say. I'm gonna say that would be a very cool theme for a restaurant. That'd be a very cool exterior for a restaurant. I want that to be a restaurant, so I'm going to say that's this land's restaurant.
But do you agree with me on the look of the outside area? Or
it does, yeah, it does kind of cut off half of the whole theme there. It kind of gets in the way.
Just more in the way than anything else,
Yeah.
All
right, well, is there anything else about the land itself on a macro level you guys want to bring up that we haven't touched on yet before we dive into, like, the rides and what those could be?
I think that Andre needs to get over how much he hates those steps.
I do! I really hate those steps. They're just unthemed and boring. Oh, what have you done, Josh? You brought that up again now, man. I mean, they don't even look like ground, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like they could do something more with them to make it look...
There is an entrance underneath those, by the way. There's like a weird hole.
I saw that, and I'm like, yeah, what is that? What's going on there? Does a warp pipe connect to that hole for some reason? That wouldn't make sense because you'd want a warp pipe exit as well, right? So
could be the exit of that attraction, the mountain attraction.
Oh, you're right. That could be. That would make sense.
Because those are all connected.
Right.
Or it could be bathrooms as well. I just want to say everything is the restrooms.
Right.
But concerning the steps question, I would just blend them in with the mountain structure anyway.
Yeah.
I think this is just an example of the concept art not.
I mean, it very well could be, but I mean, why would they? It just feels weird to me. Like, why not make that look more like the mountain for the concept art too, though?
Because they had to get this done in time. I don't know.
I mean, it definitely looks out of place with the rest of the park so far.
There's one more point to bring up that I mentioned in my analysis, but not in the discussion, and that's the fact that with this being a multi-layered land, as far as I can tell so far, there's no way for people in a wheelchair to get to the second level.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Hopefully, like, within the same, like, exit of that attraction, if that is the exit, there should be maybe a lift there, but it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, there don't seem to be any ramps or anything, but there would have to be an elevator somewhere or something. Like, they have an elevator on the Indiana Jones ride to get you around the staircase there. And another similar thing I could think of is at Universal Studios, they have that series of escalators in Hollywood that go down from the upper level to the lower level. And there's no ramps there either. So what you have to do is, because we took my grandmother there in a wheelchair, and we had to wait for a special shuttle that came like every 15 minutes to drive us from the upper lot to the lower lot, which is really interesting. And I don't think they'll do that here, but... you never know.
There could be a ramp on the left side of Princess Peach's castle.
That's true. Yeah, there could be one over there. You're right. Well, let's go ahead and start talking a little bit more about these rides. Now, we've touched on these a little bit before, but in our previous discussion, we didn't really tie in much of the patents. And that's what I really want to get into. Don, have you seen the patents at all for the Mario Kart and potential Donkey Kong rides?
I definitely have seen them, and I see that you also kind of discussed them in your analysis.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, I forgot about that up. All right, let's go and start off with the attraction you guys are all most excited about, or the one we agree we're all most excited about potentially. And the three options we have, go by the patents and the rumored attractions, are Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, which again we really don't see any signs of here potentially, unless it's the bottom right corner temple area, and then also a Yoshi Dark Ride. Which one are you guys most excited for? And we'll start there.
Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong. All right. How about you, Don?
It has to be Donkey Kong, honestly.
All right, let's do it. Donkey Kong. This is actually one we kind of touched on before, but I am so excited for this ride too, because in the patent, it's showing something I never thought was possible, where basically you're riding on a fake track, but you're connected to a real track below, so that way it can mimic the idea of you jumping off, of you going off gaps in the track and either falling to your death, or similarly falling to your death, or jumping to another track elsewhere in the ride. That has me so excited for how they're going to pull that off.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty genius idea. It's obviously when you look at a level in a Donkey Kong Country game that is a minecart level, and you try and figure out how in the world do you do that in real life, a little bit risky to literally just have a ride vehicle try and jump a gap. So to have that fake track underneath that, I think is pretty genius.
It is brilliant.
It looks also, the mechanics of it look really interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Like, it's, I mean, Donkey Kong minecart ride is something probably almost everyone has thought of at some point. But I never thought they'd be able to bring that level of functionality to the ride, or that level of, for lack of a better word, realism to a Donkey Kong ride. And I wonder how far they'll take it. Like, I would love it to bring in some of the inspiration from Tropical Freeze, where you literally go off rails at points. You're like, riding on the ground, or you end up in a water area, for instance, right? Like, I hope you won't just be confined to a mine. I hope it goes beyond the mine cart aspect of the ride and you go through like a jungle or something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that it should be like cave, temple, and jungle setting and throughout the whole thing. That would be really, really fun. You can't just do a cave, I feel.
Right.
Because you associate Donkey Kong with like a jungle setting, and thanks to Tropical Freeze, we definitely have minecart levels that are in the jungle.
Yeah.
But were they in the Super Nintendo, or were all the Super Nintendo ones in a cave or something, or a temple?
They were all in a mine, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I do hope that they draw inspiration from Tropical Freeze. And it seems like they would, because a lot of the concept art stuff that we see is very modern Nintendo, like Super Mario 3D World or New Super Mario Brothers. So I would hope that they do look at Tropical Freeze. Oh my god, that would mean that Retro Studios could be involved with helping with concept art, and that's a big plus as far as I'm concerned.
Oh man, that would be
That's
great.
why they haven't released a game in 10 years.
Oh, they've just been working on Nintendo World. Heck yeah.
Oh man, we'll be all decked out with all that good stuff from Tropical Freeze.
So with this ride, I think that they have an opportunity, because we're already kind of seeing it with that whole fake track thing. I think they have the opportunity to play a lot of tricks on guests as far as what you assume a ride would be.
Right.
Jumping over gaps in the track, or maybe even like it looks like you're gonna crash into a wall, but then it stops and you go under. You like fall, you plummet and stuff. So I think there's so much stuff they could do, and I think that concept of playing tricks with what you expect could be a really good theme to go with for this Donkey Kong ride.
Yeah, it's a little bit like going to Six Flags, where you think you could die at any moment.
Well, no, you can die at any moment at Six Flags.
Right, exactly. No, I do like that idea. Yeah, you're right. Like, it's kind of playing with the very fabric of it being a theme park ride. I mean, not in a fourth wall breaking way, but like they could present it that way, where it really does seem like you could go off, where you could go off rails. Like, it depends how convincing they want to go with this, but this could be. I mean, they played with this idea before. Like, I touched on at Expedition Everest, where you see the track broken in front of you, or even at Big Thunder Mountain. There's one part where you can see a forced perspective track above, where you can see it like going off into the distance, and it looks like you're kind of going off rails. But again, none of those are really that convincing. This is some next level stuff.
It definitely is. Yeah. Do you want to know the good pun that I'm gonna call this ride from now on?
Yes, I do.
It's DK's Mine Cartastrophe.
Oh my. I like that a lot. Oh, that almost has to be it now.
It's the Mine Cartastrophe.
Oh, that is awesome. So, another question. So, to dive into this a little bit deeper, what kind of role do you see Donkey Kong and Diddy and maybe other characters playing in this?
On screens on the side. And some animatronics mixed in.
Oh, in screens. I had to consider that. Do you think it'd be 3D maybe, like the new Harry Potter ride?
No, I think. Oh God, I sure hope not. not just because I don't like Harry Potter, but just because I think that ride used it too much, and that's pretty much all it did. No, but it's in Shanghai. You know how they had the pirates? They made pirates, and they have some screens in it.
Right.
Maybe doing that kind of thing, where you'll have like some good jungle shrubbery hiding the edges of a screen, and you see like Donkey Kong and Diddy pass by on a vine or something, or just that kind of stuff at high speed. I kind of think of this as being a little bit like the Mummy Returns attraction at Universal, to where it's an indoor roller coaster. And you have scenes that are a little bit slower to kind of put you through a story in a way.
That would work, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see that kind of a setup with DK's Mine Cartastrophe.
That's a great point. Especially with like Donkey Kong games, they have a history now of like having a lot of depth to those levels, to those environments. Like I think I said in my review, like, or in the background of Tropical Freeze, it looks like the backgrounds could almost be whole like 3D worlds in and of themselves. Right? So I think having screens is almost essential to giving you the impression that there being like a lot of depth and not just being a wall.
And I think it also would really work because the mechanics of how this ride is built allows for different kind of speeds, similar to the Mummy attraction.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that there is definitely untapped potential to make a perfect marriage between screen and real physical effects and props and stuff.
I think you're totally right.
I think that they Universal particularly, is way too screen-based.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are tired of it. King Kong was the ride that broke everyone's back with that, I think.
Right.
I can speak from experience. I've been to the Hollywood one. I can't speak for the other two. Everything that I almost went on there, except for the Mummy, failed. There were too many screens around me.
Yeah.
Right.
I was at, the high point was Transformers the ride, where I was in an actual cart, and everything interesting was happening in the screen in front of me. At that point, why not watch a movie?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think with Nintendo, Super Nintendo World, they need to future-proof this. And I think if they're smart, they're going to realize that this kind of technology of 3D video and stuff, that's becoming so mainstream that we can afford it in our houses. Like, people can get a 3D TV. You can go to any movie nowadays and see a 3D movie, right? And it's really well done.
Yeah.
So putting that in a theme park these days no longer really makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that there are some things that it's like, oh, that'd be cool for a screen. Like you were talking about, Andre, to have that depth of a background of the jungle. But then in the foreground around you should be real fake vines. I know that doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I totally get what you mean.
Actual plants
sure,
and animatronics. Some of Donkey Kong's little animal friends. Animatronics of those. Like, what is his name?
Rambi.
Yeah.
Yeah, those kind of things I think should be animatronic, on the sideline, and they're just, you're passing them by and they're doing stuff. Like I said, I want to see the perfect marriage between screens and physical things, because I think both of those really could work together fantastically. And I think with this type of thing with Nintendo, that's just going to be such a perfect time.
For me, it would definitely tip the scale of what Universal is right now for me, which is a bunch of 3D rides.
Right.
Yeah, and you're not alone. So many people are turning over to that side of saying, "Oh my God, everything is a screen." And I would be so dead inside if Nintendo's Land ends up being more of that. But I don't think it will.
I totally agree with you, especially in thinking about it more, because how we play Nintendo games is on a screen. We've already had that experience.
We've seen very high quality renders even. Like, look at the introduction for Tropical Freeze. Like, that's really well done.
It is.
So even really good 3D screens are still going to be like, oh, we've seen this.
And so in thinking about this idea more, merging physical props and a physical ride with screens, this could be, with it being a minecart ride, or at least starting off in a mine, presumably, this is all speculation, that is such a great way in which to incorporate screens in to show the outside world. Like, what I mean by that is, let's say you go to a temple at some point. Through the temple walls, you could see, the outside world. And you would blend in perfectly. Like, you wouldn't see the edge of the screen, you just see the world beyond the temple walls. Or even in a mine, let's say, a TNT barrel goes off. It blows a hole in the, ceiling, and you can see the sky through it or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah, we're definitely on the same page there.
As for Donkey Kong and Diddy, I'm trying to think, how they could fit. It just depends what kind of story they go with. One really simple idea is maybe some kind of enemy is chasing you, or from the sides or something, and Donkey Kong and Diddy throw track switches for you to get you back on track, hopefully, or something.
Yeah, that's definitely the role I see them playing in my head too, sort of helping you out because you're going off rails, and maybe the Kremlings or something are trying to take you out or something, and they're trying to help you.
Alright, I think that'll cover it for part 1 of the Super Nintendo World discussion. But you know Andre, he can talk about theme park stuff for hours, so be sure to come back for part 2 where they talk about the other possible rides. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, as well as check out more content from both the BitBlock and Nintendon. And of course, subscribe to GameXplain for more on Super Nintendo World and other things gaming too. Till next time, bye.